This is the Intuitive Leadership Mastery Podcast. What would it take for you to double your profits and half your stress with your intuition? Learn how with your host, Michael Light.
Hi, welcome back to the Business Intuition Interviews. I'm here with Michael Hrostoski, if I'm saying your name right.
Yep.
Yep, it's got a silent H in there. Which got me confused for a while. So we're going to be talking about using intuition in your business. And I know you have a very interesting story, Michael. You've done a lot of different things in life, worked in big companies, started your own business. So how do you use intuition in work and business?
Yeah, I love that you're doing this because I say no to a lot of stuff, and when he sent me this email, I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to talk about this because I really live my life through my intuition, and for me, intuition, it's a felt sense in my body. It's like from that place kind of between my heart and my solar plexus, and for me, like I have a built-in lie detector that's like very well calibrated, and I spend most of my time in my body, where like for the first probably 30 years of my life, I spent most of it in my head or not even in my body, and it's something that I've noticed as I've started to become friends with like a lot of just top performers and creators and artists, many of like the most aligned, interesting, loving people that I know, the people who I love to be around and who are super energizing, really just kind of live life through their intuition, which, you know, depending on your beliefs around God and the divine, some people say, you know, it's just like living my life according to God's plan or, you know, according to the divine blueprint. For me, I literally do things that like I'm drawn towards or things that feel good or things that are energizing, which then creates like this felt sense of heaven on earth. So I mean, I feel like there's so much that just like wants to, like, I feel like I could just talk for the next 30 minutes straight because it's such a great topic, and it's something that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about. So
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of entrepreneurs and CEOs use their intuition, but they may be a little shy talking about it. And part of what I want to achieve with this book and movement is that we become open about that we use our intuition in business to make it more successful. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a really important shift that's happening right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many. So I'll give a couple, specific examples. Like when I walk into a room, you know, when I go to a conference, like an entrepreneurship conference or a business conference, or when I walk into a dome at Burning Man, like when I walk into a room, there's typically like a felt sense of the 3 to 5 people who I'm there to meet. It pretty much happens every time I go to a 3-day event or a workshop. It's like I walk in and there's just like a felt resonance.
How do you feel that? Is you notice it in your body? Do you have a little radar in your body that tells you where to go to, or do you have a knowing? Everyone has their intuition in different ways. So
yeah, the way that I experience it. So I've done a lot of work. I used to be a yoga teacher. I got my MBA. I worked in human resources. I started a coaching business. I've worked with just like a lot of the world's best at blank. Like I worked with David Data around sacred sexuality, and I got my life coaching certification from Martha Beck, and I worked with like Siobhan Moran around just, you know, like the energy medicine piece. And so I consistently seek out the masters because for me, like learning from a master is just the quickest way to achieve mastery. So when I walk into a room, so it's like I've done a lot of work, and I've really expanded my consciousness and my energetic container. So when I walk into a room, the felt sense that I have from the people who we'll say like I have a divine appointment with, which is language that I usually wouldn't say on an interview, but if you're listening to this and you're special like Michael and I. So the felt sensation that I have, it's almost like they have room in their soul for me, or like they have room in their heart for me, or there's just there's this felt sense that just by being in relationship with them, whether it's just like dropping into a conversation or being friends with them, or I've picked up mentors and teachers like that, where I've walked in and there was just this felt sense of like, wow, this person is, has a larger energetic container than I do, or like there's just a felt sense of truth that this person has something for me, and every time I just show up to these people, I'll often, I kind of live in a space of just like filterless communication from my heart to my mouth. Like I'm kind of well known for being quote unquote like vulnerable or authentic. For me, it's just a habit that I've picked up. So lying is like impossible for me now. So I'll walk up to these people and I'll just say like exactly how I feel. So I might walk up and say, hey, I'm noticing I just feel really, really drawn towards you. Like when I'm around you, like I feel my heart just kind of get bigger, and you just seem really awesome. Who are you? And then typically they'll say who they are, and it's really awesome. And then we go into like this super deep conversation on God or death or money or sexuality or business, and and then afterwards I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad that I met you. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad that I met you. And let's do business together, or let's be friends, or let's blank, and blank is like whatever our heart's desire is with that person.
Right. Well, I think business is doing things, it's friends with value and money benefits,
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a sacred transaction, just like a romantic relationship is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it sounds like that's a really useful skill, because instead of being overwhelmed by there being hundreds of people in the conference, you just are drawn to the 3 or 5 people, however many there are, that you have a strong connection with, instead of having to talk with dozens of people to meet someone who you feel a connection with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then just coming back to where you say you now have this kind of lie detector in your intuition, that again sounds incredibly valuable for business. I'm sure most business leaders, CEOs would love to have a little flashing red light in their tummy that went off when someone was lying to them.
Mm-hmm. So I've always been really into fitness and health, and I used to be a competitive powerlifter, and then I started teaching yoga. So I love to dance. So I've always been pretty embodied. But what really took my intuition to the next level was just telling the truth all the time. There's a couple books that came into my awareness. Brad Blanton has a book, Radical Honesty. Sam Harris wrote like a short book called Lying, and I just realized, after reading these books, I realized that there was never a good reason to lie. that it was just doing me and the people around me a disservice.
Can you speak more to that? Because I think a lot of people in business lie as an expediency.
Yeah, and it's it's literally just like it's draining their energy, because it. So if you need to lie about yourself in order to get a customer, like I had a friend back home. So I had a friend back home who was a realtor, and there were just parts of his life that he didn't share with his clients. But but he did that because he's like, oh no, like if they know this about me, then they're not going to want to work with me. And I found just as I look at different businesses and even for myself, I'm thoroughly convinced that the more authentic you can be in your marketing, and the more that like you take a stand for what you believe in and for who you truly are, of course there are people who won't want to do business with you, but the people who do want to do business with you, like those are your people. Like they are your soul family, your raving fans. They are the people who will choose you day in and day out because because you love like ecstatic dance, or because you believe in aliens, or because you play in the BDSM space, or because you're a digital nomad, or because you're happily single and you don't have kids, or because just like whatever your thing is. And I just kind of made those all up off the top of my head. But there's things that like people often hide from the world that like if they just fully owned, completely without shame and guilt, it would just magnetize the hundreds, thousands, even hundreds of thousands of people that are just like them. And then what starts to happen too, that I've noticed and that my clients have noticed, that when you, Martha Beck calls it a integrity cleanse. I just call it just telling the truth all the time. Like when you start to tell the truth all the time, you just have so much energy because you're not withholding any secrets or any emotions. So yeah.
And people just feel that in you, in that authenticity in you. I mean, whether they have the same interests that you're authentic about or not, they feel your authenticity. And I don't think I think this creates more connection with other people by being open about who we are in our businesses. And let's take this to another level, because I think often in business people, they have people who work for them in their team, and they don't tell them when they're doing a good job or a bad job. How does that drain the energy as well?
I think that drains the energy because they're lying essentially. So when we don't tell our employees or our partners that they're doing a good job through praise and appreciation, we're holding back a piece of our truth about how much we love them or appreciate them. When I work with men, who are fathers and husbands and leaders, I'll ask them this question. I'll say, there's probably, at least a dozen times a day when you think about your wife, or you like look at her across the kitchen table in the morning, or you see her in the living room reading a book, and like there's probably these thoughts that come in your head of like, God, I love her so much, or I love it when she cooks my favorite meal, or I love how peaceful she looks just like sitting there on the couch. And they would say, oh yeah, totally. And then I asked them, how often do you actually say some of those thoughts? And they're like, I guess not enough. And one of my mantras is, what you appreciate appreciates. So I've been really getting in the habit, and especially recently, I've been actively in the habit of appreciating the people in my life. Because what you appreciate appreciates. So as a business leader, when you praise and appreciate your employees and specificity is what counts here. So like when you're really specific about just something that you really appreciate them about, or just something where they did a really good job, it literally like reinforces that in their beingness, and you'll actually get more of it from them. So nothing but great things happen when we praise and appreciate the people in our life. And then when we hold back, the feedback, and when we hold back the areas of improvement, when they're not meeting expectations and when they're not, holding their commitments and agreements as an employee, then we're basically kind of like stunting their growth as a human. We're creating this sense of resentment where we like resent our employees because they're not doing a good job, but like they don't know because they're not psychic.
One day they will be psychic, though.
yeah, we're all psychic. Just some of us haven't tapped into it yet.
Right, exactly. But right now, when people can't read each other's minds, it's helpful to speak the truth.
Yes, absolutely.
Partly because then they, everyone's in the same page, and also partly because if I've got a resentment about someone who's working for me and they're not doing what they said they would do, even if I don't say it, my energy is just going to leak out all over them and everyone else in the team that I'm having, I'm a little ticked off. And they won't know why, and they'll make up some story about how, it's much worse than it actually is.
Yeah, and any resentment that you have as a leader, that is 100% your responsibility. Like it's 100% your responsibility as a leader to show up and to use your words to help manage and lead and develop and support people that are on your team. And it's not always comfortable, but I mean that's why you're in a position of leadership.
So speak a bit more about as a leader you're responsible for that. So I think that's an interesting viewpoint.
Yeah. I mean, I think as a leader, as a CEO or a founder, I mean, you basically gave birth and you created this organization, which an organization is really just a shared context of people working together towards a common goal or a common vision or mission. Granted. Everyone in an organization, like who's responsible for the culture? It's everyone, but at the same time, whoever is steering the ship, ultimately, it's your responsibility to just to really lead and to be a leader, not to be like a leader in everything. So it's not like just the numbers, but I would go as far to say also the energetics, like what kind of energetics are you bringing to the company? Do you come in every day all like stressed out and like resentful, and are there things at home that are unresolved, your like relationships with your family or with your parents, because you bring that everywhere you go, which is why I'm such a proponent of personal growth, because when men tend to do this more than women. It's like they focus on one thing, and it's their income or it's their sales. In reality, like everything goes into that. If you're being super drained by your volatile marriage, there's just so much energy that's going to that. So much wasted energy that could be going to your health or to your business or to your children. So the work that I do with men like really supports them in being in right relationship with everything in their life, because that's a possibility for all humans to be in right relationship with money and women and men and work and their sexuality and their spirituality, and without being in right relationship with that, there's just a lot of pain and suffering that really isn't necessary.
I got this mental image of a CEO bringing their baggage to work, all the emotional baggage they had. And there's this myth that you can compartmentalize and you can hide your baggage. And I just don't think that's true anymore.
Yeah. And what's awesome is that, what's great for all of us is that, people are becoming more and more attuned, to energy. People are becoming more psychic. I'm what they call clairsentient. So I feel other people's emotions like in my body. I'm highly empathic. So when I walk into a room, I just have like the felt sense of how the room feels when I'm with a coaching client. Like I have a felt sense of if they're angry or if they're sad or where their energetic blocks and constrictions are in their system. And that's only and that's just very helpful for the human race. So more and more of us are just like really fully stepping into our gifts and really fully stepping into our full, in my worldview, infinite potential as a human being. And it's just a freaking great time to be alive. There's so many markers. I just heard an interview by Peter Diamandis, who wrote Abundance and Bold, and there's so many things that are getting so much better, just around poverty and infant mortality, and technology is like really allowing us to create some pretty amazing solutions to problems that have been here for decades or hundreds or thousands of years. So it's such an exciting time to be alive. And part of that also includes like exploring our inner space, because I've worked with many men who making money isn't an issue anymore. They're able, because they've created a business that can easily take care of their needs. And what I love about achieving that milestone is that once a human being is able to they don't have to worry about money anymore. There's this felt sense of like, I have everything I ever wanted, but I'm still not happy. Now what? And then they go in, and then they start exploring their inner space, their thoughts and their beliefs and their emotions and their relationships to reality and spirituality. And for me, like that's the place where I really love to live. Like I love supporting men in evolving and upgrading their internal landscape, which ultimately leads to making more money or having the best sex of your life, or just having a really joyful experience of being a father or leader or husband.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's this term in the tech world of the singularity.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think I want to apply that to this inner space work, that we're living in a time of great change in the inner life, and maybe that hasn't been recognized so far, but I just see this enormous blossoming of that, an enormous shift there.
And I'm not sure when, so if you're listening to this interview right now, I'm not sure what the date and time is of where you're at, but right now, it's, the things that are bubbling up to the surface in our collective consciousness, things like racism and misogyny and just like violence in general, bullying at schools, the unconscious masculine, which is creating a lot of sexual violence and just violence in general in the world. These things are bubbling up to the surface so that we can move past them and let go some of these archaic, more primitive ways of being, which is great news. And right now, as a human race, we're all going through growing pains. It's definitely been an intense time for me and many of my clients and many of my friends, because we're truly growing, physically, spiritually, psychically, emotionally at an exponential pace, because we're tracking with technology, which allows us to do things that we just weren't able to do 10 years ago. Like even just to have this conversation, was a like this is a miracle 20 years ago, and soon we'll all be hanging out in virtual reality and cooler and cooler interfaces in the near future. So for me, one of the big lessons has been surrender, and just really letting go of everything that was, and allowing new paradigms and new blueprints and new ways of being around business, sexuality, spirituality, relationships, which it's scary, but evolve or die.
So I want to take this in several directions. I'm excited about this. I've had a thought for a while that the technology changes are happening so fast now, it's impossible to run a business purely on a logical basis and a rational basis anymore. You've got to use intuition to make fast decisions. The amount of information that comes in and the changes in technology that occurs. But what I'm realizing talking to you is that there's also, I don't know quite what to call this, but the inner space singularity, or there's a shift in how people are relating, and that is impacting on business. You can't run business as usual when there's that shift occurring in the world.
Yeah, and if you try and run business from a very top-down, linear, hierarchical way, hierarchical, I didn't say that right, but your best employees, the most gifted, tapped in millennials, they're not going to want to work with you. Because there will be. I'm
not sure the older folks want to work with you either.
But
it may come out in different ways, because the younger folks may speak their truth and just choose not to work in that environment. The older ones may just get, backache or other issues at work, and not be bringing their full infinite self to work. So you just don't have I've seen that in organizations where just people aren't engaged. They show up, they do the work, but they're only doing 10% of what is possible.
Yeah, I mean, I had a 6-figure salary at a Fortune 50 healthcare company, and I actually felt guilty about how much money I was making to do so little, because I had so many gifts and ideas and so much to share, but they only wanted me to work on this little project in this one department. And I had a conversation with one of my mentors who was a vice president. I was in a human resources leadership development program. It's high potential program for post MBA grads. And she said, hey, Michael, of all the people who step into my office, probably hundreds of people a month, and you are definitely a 0% on the bullshit meter. And I said, oh wow, thank you. I really try and live my life, in a really authentic way with a lot of integrity. And then she said, have you thought about how that might be hurting you? And then we got into this kind of deep philosophical conversation about chain of command, and not always speaking up in meetings, and going through your manager. And that was a really pivotal conversation for me, because I just knew in that moment my days were numbered, because I couldn't work for a company where I couldn't just be myself and share my full gifts. My intentions were so pure. I just wanted to help them make more money, reduce expenses, help more people. But in some of these companies, there's just very little room for ideas or innovation, and they just keep doing things the way that they've done them for, the company I worked for was a 125-year-old company. And that has worked. But, companies that aren't actively innovating, I think I heard something in 10 years, 40% of Fortune 500 companies will will be gone, and they'll be ousted by companies that haven't even been built yet, and that's just the reality of business today. So
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of disruption occurring in many industries, and if you're not innovating in your business, you are dying. Maybe it won't collapse this year, but 10 years out, it's going to be hard to still be around if you haven't made shifts and changes to keep up with technology and social changes. And this inner work change, which I still don't quite have a good label for or name for it, but I get what it is. That everyone's becoming more aware, and they're bringing their authenticity to work, and they're bringing their whole self. They want to be their whole powerful self and have meaning in their work. And if they don't have the opportunity to fulfill that, it's both frustrating and it's a big loss for the organization.
Yeah, so I just want to share just a possibility. So I live in a world where I only hang out with people who I love, and yeah, it's not even like people who I love. There is no separation of myself and my business and like my social self and my personal self. I don't recommend this for everyone, but for me, it was a necessary part of my journey of coming out of a religious cult. But for me, I've pretty much shared most of my personal details online, my relationships with like alcohol or pornography or money or women. I've really shared a lot of like my internal blocks and fears and things, and because of that, I have so much trust built with the world. I mean, anyone who's like, read my blogs or heard, podcast interviews, because I pretty much answer any question that anyone asks me. And I have just a lot of intimacy with some really amazing people. Like I look at the people who are my friends now, and I'm blown away sometimes. Like, wow, like how did I get in this room or in this peer group? But really, it was just me authentically sharing who I really was, which shockingly, when I would share things that I felt so uncomfortable about sharing, and the thing that I thought would like make people run away or abandon me, the opposite happened. Like they loved me more because they were going through the same thing, because most of us are going through like the same 3 or 4 core issues of we feel we're not good enough, or we feel we're not worthy of love, or we wish we had more money, or so when I share that stuff, there was just just so much love and support and kinship and love and connection that just started coming my way. So I'm not a millionaire, but I feel like a spiritual and social billionaire. Like I have this. There's honestly, like I truly have no like desires. Like there's nothing that my heart's really aching for, because it's just so full with love and connection with like really, really great people. And the work that I do, I have clients who regularly just send me like voicemails or write me long emails and like, oh, I love you, Michael. And it's coming from like a really powerful, empowered place. Like they're not trying to like get my validation, but like it's just like this like felt sense of like, I love you, brother. And and I just felt like sharing that, because I would have never dreamed that the life that I'm living was possible, based on the religion and the parents and the city and everything that I grew up in. But it's super possible. And the main 2 things that got me here were just telling the truth all the time and loving myself. Like it's actually that simple of just tell the truth, love yourself, tell the truth, love yourself. And then like magic and miracles start to occur on a almost daily basis.
So we talked a bit about telling the truth in business. Can you talk about self-love in business? Because I think that's not often talked about.
Yeah. Self-love is the everything. When someone fully loves and fully accepts themselves and are able to see themselves and observe themselves through the lenses of love and compassion, it just puts them into a abundant state, because they come off much less needy. Things start to almost like magnetically come into their life, whether it's clients or dates or whatever they desire, and someone who's not able to like love and appreciate themselves and celebrate their wins and celebrate the progress that they've made and have gratitude for the hundreds of amazing things in their life. I mean, if you're listening to this interview right now, like you're killing it at life. You are living better than the kings of ancient history. Like you're absolutely crushing it at life. And so without that self-love, self-acceptance and gratitude, it doesn't matter. Like you could have $1 billion in the bank and you'd still be miserable. And you'd be like, man, why don't I have 2 billion? So this mantra, and I got this from Elizabeth D'Alto, is I am enough, I have enough, I do enough. I am enough, I have enough, I do enough. Like that's my prescription that I regularly give to my clients when they feel like, oh man, I'm not doing enough work, and I'm not hustling as hard as Gary Vee. And I'm like, well, like, you're not Gary Vee, dude. You're and I am enough, I have enough, I do enough. That's my prescription for anyone who just is having a hard time loving themselves, because that's actually the reality. So you're causing yourself suffering because you're arguing against reality. Like the reality is you are enough. Like just your beingness as it is, you are enough, and you have enough because you have what you have, and that's the reality. And you do enough. It's like that's what you do every day. And there's always room for more. As humans, like you'll just continue to get better and better, and that's just part of the evolutionary drive moving through you. And thank goodness we're not perfect, because life would be pretty boring. So I love that there's always more to be. But even though right now as a leader and an entrepreneur and a man, there's still some major developmental gaps for me between who I am today and who I know that I'm possible, like what I'm capable of being. But I don't let that make me sad or like make me feel less than. I just know that I'm in the perfect place. Everything is happening in due time, and I regularly celebrate and appreciate, everything in life. Like I get to do this podcast interview. Like this is such a joy for me to be able to talk about some of like my favorite subjects with, my Michael, who I had lunch experience. I get to be doing this right now. So yeah, that's a bit about self-love. Just recognize all of the amazing things that you've already created and experienced, and the amazingness that you already are. And then from there, you literally fill up your cup. Like you're moving through the world with a full cup, instead of being on fumes and being super needy and like needing people's attention and being attention seeking and just like sucking the life out of the room.
I think the ability to bring self-love to work is key here, because just think about how that affects everyone else in your business, how it affects all your staff, how it affects any vendors you work with, how it affects clients you have, how it attracts prospects. Because how can they love themselves in your business if you don't love yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
as the leader, you're the role model for this, that you love yourself, you're enough. They then get that, it's okay for them to love themselves when they're around you, and hopefully in the rest of their life.
Yeah, and it's okay for them to make mistakes. 'Cause I don't believe in failure. It's okay for them to
You don't believe in failure? Tell us more about that.
Oh yeah, I just don't like someone who fails is not a failure. And I mean, every failure that I've ever had was actually a victory, because I lived to try again. And I think the greatest failure is having knowledge or wisdom or gifts or capabilities and not fully sharing them with the world. Because you're basically hoarding your gifts, and you're not creating any value in the world when there's so much potential value in you. So stop it, because we all need your help. And I really don't believe in failure, because I'm not I don't do this 100% of the time, but I've been much more aware about it. But when I go into, like a business or dating or social situation, before I go into it, whether it's a new project or a new creative endeavor, or if I go to some conference, I actively let go of expectations. So I move into new things without expectations. And then whatever arises, is a win. Whatever arises, I'm kind of surprised by. And it allows me to just see everything with fresh eyes, sort of through the eyes of a child. And I move through the world in a pretty constant state of awe, because I just have no expectations of how things are going to go. And it's a really fun way to live life. And this is something that, it's really taking years of years and, over $100,000 of personal development. And it's I've put in my 10,000 hours around many things, and just a lot of practice, a lot of spiritual practice. But it just keeps getting better and better. And that's something I've been saying a lot with my friends lately. We'll just be sitting around having dinner, and I'll say, wow, isn't it cool that this is the suckiest version of us? This is the worst that will ever be. we're just going to continue to get wiser and just have more and more and more awareness about life. How cool is that? So yeah, those are just some of the ways that I view life, which creates the result of more joy, more happiness, more sales. I make more money as a happy person than a depressed, miserable, resentful person. Mm-hmm. I certainly wasn't born this way. I've been suicidal, many times in my life. I had a lot of depression. I pretty much drank most of my 20s away, because I used alcohol as a numbing and a coping mechanism instead of just feeling my feelings, because I didn't know that you were allowed to just cry as a man. And yeah,
that matter.
Yeah, cry or laugh or play. And yeah, I just turned 35 this year, and I have the maturity I have the maturity to stay true to my commitments and my agreements, but I also have the ability to let myself just totally be a kid. I have so much fun with my friends and my clients too. I bring these energetics of play and laughter and silliness into my coaching, and it helps lighten them up. And one of my friends, Amateo, said this at his conference. He said, enlightenment is the process of lightening up. So he was like, so just laugh. Just, give yourself permission to laugh and play. And I think that's a reminder that I definitely need as a leader and as someone who really strives to be like on the cutting edge of consciousness and beingness, just to create like new healthy models of masculinity and beingness in the world. And I've definitely noticed there are times where like I put so much pressure on myself to like be this like perfect man, but that's not helping anyone. So then I just stop it, and then I just laugh and like look at my scrambled eggs in the morning and just think, God, like, wow, I'm eating eggs, and I didn't even have to like pluck these. And I'll just think about value chains sometimes, like when I go to Whole Foods, and I'll think about the amount of labor and work and love and technology and just all the things that it took to like have this kombucha in my hand, and I'll just kind of blow my mind with like just the miracle of life and how many moving pieces that there are.
And that's true in business too. If you have a business, just think of all the different people and all the supply chains, all the different pieces of software that tens of thousands of hours were spent writing just so you could have an easier business to run through all the tools that you use in your business and your staff use. It's a miracle, really.
Yeah, truly.
So, and I just want to loop this back into the innovation, because I think by letting go of expectations and having a more playful way of being in business, that can let innovation blossom in your business. And that's a key for surviving in all this change and thriving with all the change that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that I love about myself, which might almost sound arrogant to say, but I love myself enough to say is something I love about myself is I'm super humble and I'm super receptive. And what I mean by that is like I kind of move through the world like everyone is God, and everyone has a message for me, and everyone has something to teach me. And I'm just like everywhere I go, whether I'm in the line at Chipotle or I'm doing grocery shopping, I'm so receptive to learning from life itself, like learning from nature, learning from children. I've been super into hanging out with kids lately. Some of my friends are having children, and I mean, I'll just sit there and just be with them and just have all these insights about business or relationships.
What's the last insight you got for your business?
I mean, they're just so pure and angelic, and when they're sad, they cry, and a child will go from crying to laughing in 0.1 seconds. Like there's no filter, there's no repression of emotions or of their truths, and because of that, they're not, they don't have all this baggage in their relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I think if young children, typically less than 3 years old in my experience, because after that, they often get a little socialization going, and they kind of shut down some of that stuff. Sometimes people make it into adulthood without shutting that stuff down, but I think often we come into this world with all this spiritual gifts and intuition, and then we close it all down, and then sometimes later in life we open it back up again. If children had the intellectual understanding to be able to do business, I think they would be better business people than a lot of adults.
Oh, thought about that. I've actually had that as a business idea. Like what if my board of directors were like a bunch of 5-year-olds? Like I honestly think,
well, they could be for your spiritual board of directors. I don't know if you've had this idea that you have got, you can bring in a spiritual board of directors and have guides. So you certainly could have children there to give you, what's the energy to go for.
Yeah, I could just show them like different products or services or like packaging, and if they like it, they'll play with it, and if not, they'll just cry or be like kind of disgusted by it.
Right? They wouldn't lie to your face like people would. Wow, very cool. Well, I really enjoyed talking with you this hour, Michael. If people wanted to find more about you, how would they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook. I have a public profile. I'm super active there. It's under my name, Michael Hrostoski. And then my 2 websites are hrostoski.com, which is my personal blog, and it just has a lot of my journey over the past 5 years. And then theschoolformen.com, which is that's where a majority of my current time and awareness is going to supporting men and just really growing this global community of men committed to mastering the game of life.
Fabulous. Well, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I loved having this conversation, and just for, if you're hearing this interview, if something that I said really piqued your interest, or if you feel like it'd be a good fit to do some work with me, or explore these topics deeper, I'm super accessible. So just reach out via Facebook or my website, and we'll talk.
All right, thank you, Michael.
Get strategies and show notes at intuitiveleadershipmastery.com. What would it take to see you here next time on the Intuitive Leadership Mastery Podcast?